With Black Friday right around the corner, there's never been a better time to get a great deal on a computer. And there's also never been a better time to get ripped off if you don't know what you're looking for. This is my third year in a row making a computer buyer's guide, and technology changes so fast. It's important to know not just what you can buy, but what you should buy. That's what we're going to talk about today. Now understand that this video is for novice computer users. If you're an expert already, you probably already know more than what I'm going to tell you in this video. This is for people who really don't know a processor from a hard drive, don't know NVMe from DDR5. If that's you, you're going to enjoy this. I'm going to give you just a basic outline of what to look for when you see those Black Friday ads that look too good to be true. Hello everyone, if you're new here, my name's Scott Merrill. I've been in IT for almost 35 years, and what I do on this channel is Windows tips, tricks, reviews, troubleshooting, and more. If that's the kind of thing you're into, make sure you check out my video library because I got a ton of other videos that you might like. Also, one of the things I love doing is making PC recommendations for those of you who really aren't sure what to buy. There's a link in the description. It's a quick form. If you fill that out, I will laser focus and find you exactly what you're looking for on your budget. 100% free, and I'm happy to do it. Now, before we get started, I have to put this out here. If you are watching this on TikTok, it is stolen content. Someone has taken all my YouTube videos, uploaded them on their TikTok channel, and they're getting all the views and all the revenue from it. I've gotten a lot of emails from people asking me, how come I never responded? Well, it's because it's not me. It's somebody else's channel. I've been trying to get TikTok to take it down, but unfortunately, no matter how many times I report it, they leave the content up. So just know, if it's on TikTok, it's not me. Now that being said, let's go over some of the basics. So let's start with storage, and this is one of the biggest marketing hooks to get you to buy that computer at such a great deal. There are three primary hard drive types, and I want to just kind of briefly go over them with you just so you kind of understand when you see one term versus the other that you kind of know what it means. The old standard for hard drives are what's known as HDD drives. They look like this. They're basically old, what we call spindle drives, because there is actually a spinning platform in the middle of the drive. And that means it's a mechanical drive. And by today's standards, these things are like dinosaurs. But back in the day, they were great. Now, these are considered old and slow. And a lot of times, if you see the term HDD on an advertisement, it means it's got one of these older, slower drives. A lot of times what these vendors will do is they'll advertise, this computer comes with a 2 terabyte hard drive, and it's actually a 2 terabyte spindle drive, which is extremely slow, even though it's got a ton of space. If you see an advertisement for a computer with an HDD drive as its only drive, I would probably stay away from that one because it's going to be slow. Now the next generation of hard drives is what's known as SSD. And I have an example here. This is a Samsung SSD drive. Now, SSD also stands for solid state device, so you may see that term interchangeably. But basically, the difference between these drives is, even if they're the same exact size, this is a spindle drive, a mechanical drive. It has moving parts. This, the SSD, has no moving parts. Everything is done on a circuit board on this thing, which makes this drive about 5 times faster than this one at minimum. So if you see SSD, and that's kind of become the middle of the road standard now, most computers you're going to see an SSD drive. But just know the difference between a mechanical HDD and an SSD. An SSD is always going to be faster. Now the downside is because there's no moving parts and it is much faster, you're generally going to have less drive space. So for example, you could probably have 2 terabytes of a spindle drive for probably around the price of a 500 gig or smaller SSD. That's the price you pay for the speed. Now if you don't need that storage space, then this is actually a really good deal. But some people actually need more storage. Now the latest technology when it comes to storage drives is what's known as M.2. They look like this. They're about the size of a stick of gum. But just like the SSD, the M.2 drive has no moving parts either. But the difference is the format of the drive. This old SSD is using what's known as a SATA interface, and this one uses an M.2 interface. Hopefully you can see the two of those look completely different. Now, this is actually up to 5 or more times faster than the SSD because of the communications port, and that's basically what the drive plugs into. And most of you are not going to get that far because you're not going to look inside the computer, but just know that if you see an HDD, that's okay. An SSD is better, but smaller storage. And the M.2 is going to be super awesome, super fast, but again, like the SSD, less file storage. You're going to get a ton of extra speed for that price, but what you lose is the amount of storage. Now you might be asking, well, how do I know which one's best for me? So if you're doing things that require a ton of speed, like editing videos and things like that, you'd be better off with a computer that has an M.2 because the transfer rate, the data transfer rate, how fast stuff gets written back and forth is a lot faster. But for the vast majority of people, and I would say this is pretty much for everyday users now, an SSD is a great blend of speed versus storage space. So if you see a computer that's advertising SSD, it's probably talking about this. And like, you don't need to be confused any further already. This M.2 drive comes in two separate varieties. There's NVMe, which is the fastest available speed. And then the M.2 also comes in the SATA format, which means it basically is limited to the same speed as this one. So long story short, if you see a computer that's advertised as an M.2, but it's not NVMe, it's labeled M.2 SSD, just know that it's not much faster than this one. So don't get suckered into the new terminology, but it's actually older technology. That gets a lot of people. And you could end up paying a lot more for what you think is a faster drive when actually it's not much faster than this. For the vast majority of people doing everyday tasks, opening documents and browsing the web and whatever, a typical SSD, which again is kind of the norm, a typical SSD is going to probably be more than enough for you. And that will allow you to get more physical storage for less money. And honestly, for day-to-day stuff, especially if you have a ton of pictures or documents and things like that, I'd rather go with a SATA SSD that has a larger storage capacity than an M.2 drive with less. You're going to actually come out ahead because you have all that extra storage, and it's pretty reasonably affordable. So if you aren't confused enough, let's go on to the second thing, which is the CPU or processor. CPU actually stands for Central Processing Unit. Now, back in the day, I'm old enough to remember when there was maybe 4 or 5 different processors to choose from. Nowadays, there's literally hundreds. There's all the different generations. There's a number of cores, number of threads, all kinds of stuff. Some are built for power efficiency, some are built for performance, and it can literally scramble your brain. And I'm going to give you a general rule that might help you, and it's not exact. There are websites you can go to and look up what they call benchmark the performance of a particular processor. But as a general rule, you're going to have two types. There's either Intel, which makes the Intel and Core series processors, and then there's AMD, who makes the Ryzen line of processors. And logically, you would think a Intel i3 would be slower than an Intel Core i5, but that's not always the case. As a general rule, the i3s are going to have less cores and less threads than the newer generation processors. So there may be some overlap between, like, one i3 may actually be faster than an i5, but as a general rule, an i3 will almost always be slower than an i7 or an i9. And same with the Ryzen. You have the Ryzen 3, 5, 7, and 9, and yes, an Intel i9 or a Ryzen 9 is generally going to be pretty darn fast. But what I tell people all the time, and then when they're looking for the computer, they go, well, I just want to get the fastest computer possible. And I say, why? That fast computer, the one with the Ryzen 9 or the i9 processor, is basically, to me, like buying a Ferrari to go grocery shopping. It's kind of overkill. And then some people say, well, I want it to be future-proof. Well, what does the future look like? If the future is you doing the same 6, 7 things, sitting in front of the computer, surfing YouTube, looking at the Facebook or surfing the web, you do not need an i9 or a Ryzen 9 processor. The vast majority of people out there who have either an i3, an i5, and maybe even a lower end i7, that can handle all your daily activities, and it will continue to do so for several years. The processor only works as hard as what the user is actually making it do. So if you're not asking it to crunch videos, or you're not doing high-end graphic design or CAD work or anything like that, why do you need a high-end processor? Go with a mid-of-the-range i3, i5, i7, somewhere in there. You can save a ton of money, because once you start getting into the Ryzen 9 or Core i9 arena, that's when you start seeing the money going up and up and up. The cost is just going to continue to increase because everyone wants the fastest processor. Most of the people I talk to are everyday users who do the same 5-6 things, and you can get them an i5 processor and it's super fast and it does everything that they need to do. But that is based on the third thing, which is memory. And if you want a little better explanation of CPUs and generations and cores and all that, I did find a really cool video on YouTube and from another creator, and I will put that in the video description. It actually helped me understand it a little bit better, because as complicated as it gets with all these processors, it was actually kind of nice to get kind of a for dummies version. Now, when it comes to memory, or what's known as RAM, there are really only 3 types of memory that you could still probably get on the market. The oldest is what's known as DDR3. DDR3 is really old technology. I mean, probably 15 years or so. You might actually have a computer with DDR3 RAM in it right now. The new standard, just like I was showing you, the SATA SSD is kind of the norm. The new standard is DDR4, and that is pretty much going to be good for almost anybody who just does basic stuff. And again, I'm talking social media, maybe watching videos, sending emails, typing documents. The DDR4 is going to be more than enough. DDR5 is the newer, faster technology. For an example, when I bought a computer, I had to get one that had DDR5, because the amount of data that memory can write is so much faster than DDR4. So if I'm compiling a 20+ minute video, I need to be able to crunch that data faster, so the DDR5 is going to get that job done faster for me. If all I'm doing is surfing the net or typing documents or just watching videos online, why do I need the fastest memory available? Again, the DDR5 is what's going to get you, because people are going to say, you need this new motherboard with the Ryzen 9 and it's got 64 gigs of DDR5, the fastest memory available. And that's literally like the Ferrari going to the grocery store. It is absolutely senseless. Now, that's another question I get too when it comes to memories. How much memory do I need? Because you'll see 8 gigs and 16 gigs, 32 gigs, 64 gigs, 128 gigs. As an example, in my computer, I have 128 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM. I have the fastest RAM available and the most amount that my computer will support. But again, I'm crunching videos. I'm doing high-end stuff. I'm not just sitting here surfing the web. That would be a waste of money. For the vast majority of people, if you're just one of those people that just sits down, does the same 5, 6, 7 things every day, an average computer with either, again, with an i3, probably an i5, i7 processor, 16 gigabytes of RAM is more than plenty for what you need. Now, when you start getting into gaming, that's when your needs might get a little higher. Gamers do require more memory and more processor power because of how that game runs. So I wouldn't even consider a computer a gaming machine unless it had 32 gigabytes, 64 gigabytes, or more of memory. You're really just going to need that extra horsepower. But if you're not a gamer, then don't spend that money. You could be perfectly fine with 16 gigabytes of DDR4, and that would last you for years, and you never know the difference. The real power is in the processor, not in the memory. So just don't be suckered into saying the DDR5, that's got to be better than the DDR4. Well, it is, but it comes at a cost. And again, these are just practical applications. When I get PC recommendations, like I told you before, and people are like, well, I just do everyday things, or it's a company computer, and they send me a link to some computer that's like $1,000 more than they need to spend, and I send it back and I say, actually, this one with the i5, the 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM, and a 1 terabyte hard drive, you're good to go. So again, if you need that recommendation after I've scrambled your brain a little bit, click the link in the description below and I'll help you out. Now, another question I get all the time is, should I get a desktop or a laptop or an all-in-one or a mini PC? Well, let me kind of just give you a brief synopsis of what makes the most sense for your average person. Most people are familiar with the traditional desktop, that it's basically a tower and it sits on your desk and everything plugs into it. You plug your monitor into it and it just sits there. A desktop computer, honestly, for most people now is overkill. You can get a mini PC that does literally everything. Matter of fact, I set one up for a client today, and when they got it, they're like, there's no way there's this much power in this tiny box. But if you are not planning on doing any upgrades, if you're not planning on adding a graphics card or expanding your graphics capability, if you really aren't planning on getting inside of it and doing anything, it's got all the USB ports you need, it's got all the power you need, it's got the same processor technology, same memory, same storage, all that stuff in a box about this big. And a lot of these brands that are coming up now, like you may not have heard of, but several of them that I really like, GMK Tech, Minis Forum, there's a handful of them that are really quality machines that I've put on several clients' desks, and they just absolutely love them. And the price is significantly lower than a traditional desktop. These people don't need to upgrade it. They just need a working computer. And in that little box, it does everything that you need it to do. Now, that being said, some people need a laptop, or they think they need a laptop. I have some clients that have literally bought a laptop. They plug a mouse into it and a keyboard into it and use that screen as their desktop. It never comes off the desk. It's not mobile at all. And I'm like, why did you buy a laptop? Laptops are for mobility. It's certainly if you travel and you need to take your business with you, or you want to, meander around the house or whatever, or have, something you can literally put in your lap, a laptop makes more sense. The downside to a laptop is that repair costs are going to be higher because it's a specialty thing. The parts inside are going to be more expensive, and you have to find somebody that knows how to take it apart and replace those parts. Whereas with a desktop, you can kind of just open a cover and pop in a new storage drive or whatever. Everything's kind of easy to get to. A laptop is a lot more complicated. And I know I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of laptops in my day. So if you aren't needing to be mobile, don't buy a laptop to sit on a desk. What I would recommend is probably get a mini PC, get you a nice big 24, 27-inch monitor, stick that sucker on the desk. You got a tiny PC that's out of the way. You free up desk space. You have this big, beautiful monitor. Everything plugs into it, and boom, you're done. But since we're on the subject of monitors, a lot of people like the idea of what they call an all-in-one, or AIO. Now, all-in-one computers are novel, I guess I would call them. I've repaired so many of these over the years, and they have gotten a lot better as far as heat management, heat dissipation, things like that. Some of the older ones had trouble letting the heat out, and so they would overheat the machines, and HP specifically was bad about this, but most of the manufacturers now have fixed all that. An all-in-one is great because it's literally a computer with a screen attached to it. Basically, it's a laptop standing on its end, if you think of it that way. Those are really cool, and they look really nice on a desk. You're still going to have to plug a mouse and keyboard into it unless you want to use the touch screen the entire time. But the all-in-one, like a laptop, the parts are very proprietary. They are more expensive than traditional desktop parts. So if you just get a 1-year warranty with an all-in-one and you have a problem with it, you're going to run into some expenses there. So what I would probably recommend is spend less money, get you a little mini PC, get you a nice big monitor, and honestly, if the PC dies, you didn't spend a whole lot on it. You can end up spending well over $1,000 on an all-in-one, and then once it dies, you have to go buy another one. So they're not my favorite. They have their purpose, but they would probably be the last thing I would choose unless it's somebody who very specifically wanted an all-in-one for a very specific reason. And just like laptops, all-in-ones are going to be difficult or nearly impossible to upgrade. You can't really add a graphics card. You could probably replace the hard drive and the memory, add some more of that, but there's no real upgradability like there would be with a traditional tower desktop. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at what do I want to buy. What most people don't understand, and this just cracks me up, is that whether it's a laptop, a desktop, an all-in-one, a mini PC, when people think about brands, so many people have been suckered mentally into thinking a specific brand is fantastic. If you've always had HP computers and you've never had a problem with HP, guess what? When it comes time to buy another one, you are going to assume that if you get another HP, you're not going to have problems with it. And sometimes that's the case, but unfortunately, it's not always the case. Computers are not made the way that they used to be. Everything used to be done by hand. Quality assurance checks, I know because I used to be one of those guys. And unfortunately, nowadays, everything's done automatically by robots. There's very little basic quality assurance checks. And truth be told, the only thing that makes an HP is two things. One, the plastic on the outside of the box that says HP, and two, the HP warranty that comes with that computer. Now, that being said, I'm big on warranty. Now, some of you have heard me say that I'm a big proponent of extended warranties, and my words, I probably should have clarified a little bit. I'm not saying buy a 3-year warranty on every computer. What I am saying is there's certain times where an extended warranty, for example, if you have a kid in college with a laptop, certain times extended warranty might be sufficient. But for the most part, the 1-year factory warranty that comes with every computer is really all you need. But make sure that when you buy it, even if it's from a brand like HP or Dell, or a brand like GMK Tech or Minis Forum or one of those up-and-coming brands, just make sure that it comes with the 1-year warranty, because ultimately the brand itself really isn't that as important. Everything inside that computer, the motherboard is going to be probably made by Intel. The chip is either going to be made by AMD or Intel. The memory is going to either be Crucial or Patriot or one of those brands. The storage drive is going to be Western Digital or Seagate or Toshiba. There's literally nothing inside the computer that's HP. So if that's the case, what are you buying? You're buying what the brands have convinced you need. So don't be locked into one specific brand. I've had all different brands of computers, and honestly, at the end of the day, when I take them apart, I can't tell what's what. So don't spend extra money because a specific brand that costs more makes you happy. Sometimes going with a lesser known brand, which works just as well as the one you were going to buy, puts money back in your pocket. And ultimately, that's what this guide is about, is saving you money by letting you know things that you may not have already known. So as I said originally, Black Friday is a great opportunity to pick up a deal if it's an actual deal. And if you're just not sure, or your brain is scrambled and you go, I still don't know what I'm looking at or whatever, let me help you. Again, the link is in the description. It's a PC recommendation form. I can fill it out and have it back to you in time for Black Friday and certainly in time for Christmas. So I hope you enjoyed this content. If you did, hit that subscribe button right now for me, because about 80% of the people that watch my channel aren't subscribed. I just hit 300,000 and I'm on my way to 400,000, but I can do it with your help. So if you like this video and you want to share it with somebody who you think would benefit from knowing, make sure you hit share. In the meantime, the PC recommendation form is in the description if you want to use it. And as always, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.